Hello everyone, it's the Left-Handed Lady today coming at you with our February plan with me. I'm just going through and picking out my color scheme. I've got my 3 pink/peach Tombow pens and then as well as some Color It brush water pens. We're going to be doing birds this month. Of course, love birds because it is February. I'm just taking my Tombow brush pens and lightly flicking them randomly onto her wings. This is actually the male, so the male's wings. And then taking the brush pen and going over the whole thing. The brush gives it very hollow, leafy look, which makes it easier to mimic feathers. Doing the same thing on her head, well, his head again, sorry. This is the male because it is colorful. Just taking that brush pen and going over everything, making the feather look, and taking a light pastel pink brush pen and just making that body very shaggy, thin looking. I'm also using that same pink for the female's inside of her body. And we're going to go in with my Tombow again. We're adding a tiny bit of color here, but then I'm going over it with a brown to make it a little bit more muted, as female birds tend to be. Little strokes here and there, making it look more and more like feathers. Going in with a brown and adding the beak. I use 2 different colors of brown here to divide the top and the bottom. I think it gives it good dimension. And I'm coming in with a dark brown brush pen to make the branch that they are sitting on. I find it really easy to make natural movements with these brush pens. Very easy to make a branch look like a branch with the limited amount of control you get with these brush pens. I find it actually helps. Now I'm going back in, bringing those Tombow brush pen colors back to life and adding some flowers off of my branches. Just tiny little blossoms, nothing fancy. The main focus here is the birds. Now I'm going to take a very fine liner. This one is actually like so skinny at the end that if I barely touch the page, it barely writes. And that's why I chose this, because I'm making such squiggly, imperfect lines for the feathers that I wanted something that almost wouldn't show up half the time, giving it more of that feathery look. But as you can tell, I'm literally just squiggling. And it just gives a little bit of texture and dimension to those feathers. And don't try to be even with these feathers. If you make them look even, they're not going to look right. You're going to hate it. Just continue to make them very sporadic, and it'll look more like feathers as you do it more and more. I'm going through and outlining all of the flowers and leaves, as well as the branch, with that same fine liner. I actually think I switched to a thicker fine liner here, just to get a little bit sharper of a detail edge. Now I'm going to take that blushy color and I'm just going to kind of shade in the area where I want to write February 2020, just to give it a little bit of dimension underneath the cursive. Now I will leave you a little tip. I had to go over this several times because I went directly on top of the watercolor pen and my pen was not cooperating well with it being saturated already with ink. So I had to go over multiple times. So if you want to avoid doing that, just wait until your watercolor dries to write on top of it. And now we are moving on to our tracker. Basically the same layout as last month. We're just going through every other day with this blushy pink brush pen, just lightly lining it. I'm not being super particular on how straight it is. I like that look. And then going in on top of that red that we use for the female's feathers, or no, the male's feathers, and just filling in the opposite days. And I'm going to take that brown that I used on the female to tie it in with this page by making the banner brown. And this banner is so simple. You just drop shadow that second layer down about one dot on your paper and add this little indent of a darker shade, and it looks so cute and so fancy. And I think it goes well with the birds, as something about birds holding ribbons is sticking in my head. Now we're going to take these stamps that I've been holding on to, I have no idea where I got them, so old, and just coloring on them with our colors and stamping them over the page. Now you can tell I've taken sticky notes to block off that section, just to mask it off and make it look separated from the design in the background. This is a really good trick for you if you want to have a really detailed background and yet have something very simple and necessary on top of it. And I think it just adds that little lovebird theme to the second half of this spread. And like you see, if I remove that mask of that, you can tell that it just kind of cuts off where my chart begins, which I really like. Gives you that feeling that there's a colored paper or a construction paper behind it. Just going through with my fine liner and making my graph 3D, going through each column. I believe I have 8 things here today for tracking this month, as well as the 29 days. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm just lining away, making my lines. I did not do the horizontal lines for each day because I did do the different colors, and I kind of liked the way that looked. Going through and outlining that banner with this black pen, as well as going in and writing "keeping track" across the top. Now we're moving on to our monthly spread, and I'm sticking with that bird theme and the trees. So I'm taking that same masking technique that I used on the other page and my brown brush pen and just going in to the border of these pages and making 2 trees, one on the left side, one on the right, both growing into each other. It does not need to be perfect. That's what I love about drawing trees and wilderness things. It's all natural. It's all the flow of your hand. So you cannot make an imperfect swipe, in my opinion. Just let the pencil go. Just taking my time and making sure that I get all of the pieces that I want filled in with this brown. I really like the way that it's bordering my calendar. It really makes it feel prominent in the middle of these trees. I'm taking my branches to somewhat meet in the middle. I don't want them too close. I don't want it to look too pristine, but I am wanting one bird on each. And like I said, just use your own brush stroke and feel the way it's going to go. Going back in with the same technique and the same colors on the birds that I did in the front page on this, just much smaller, super easy to do, just blocking out the colors and then tracing. And as you can see, I've got to check my reference because I can't remember, even though I did it 15 minutes ago. Now, taking that peachy color, because I haven't really got to use that yet, but I do want to include it in my spread, and I'm going to make another ribbon banner here for the word February. And now that I'm looking at it, I kind of wish that I had done this color on the other page to coordinate them, but I'm not worried about it. It looks pretty good with the colors. I'm going to go through with my Tombow brush pen, the dual side with the big felt tip, and make really chunky lines for this month because I wanted something very bold to go with such a bold theme. I'm going through with that same bold pen and writing the word February and outlining that. I really wanted it to stand out just like the calendar, so I'm using that bolder tip. And I really like the way it looks. It looks very cartoonesque. Going in and adding the details to the birds just like I did on the front, but in a much smaller and a little bit less detail. Going and I'm just going to outline, do a rough outline of the trees. I'm not adding any texture with my pen because I already did that with the marker. I'm just going and outlining it because that's me. I outline everything. You could just leave it like this. It gives it a little bit more of a raw element to it. Now I'm going to take those red and pink brush pens from the tracker set and doing every other number block a little heart with that pink or the red alternating. And I just think that turned out so stinking cute. It did take a lot more time than it needed to, but super cute. Now I'm going in and coloring on that same kind of stamp to add my big date things, like important events and those kind of things that take up a lot of time during a day. And as I'm flipping back and forth to my calendar, I realize that this is when I messed up. I have set up my planner from Monday through Sunday, almost my entire planning life. And for some reason, this month I decided I was going to make it the boxes from Sunday to Saturday and fill parts of it in that way and then not realize it halfway through. So you'll see me making a mistake and realizing that Valentine's Day was the first heart that I put because I made a mistake on my whole setup, and having to cover that up with a piece of paper that I just took from my desk and tore apart and glued on. I can tell you right now, this is not the first time I've made this mistake. That is why I tell everyone to draw in pencil first. I don't know what I was thinking when I sketched this, but I sketched it wrong. And I guess you just live and you learn. There's nothing wrong with a Sunday through Saturday setup. I just like having my weeks set up from Monday through Sunday because that's how my work week works out. But this really won't change anything. I still will do my weeklies Monday through Sunday, but it just made it so much harder. I am going through with my fine liner and just putting in all the dates now that I've realized my mistake and I can put in my dates. And taking that really thick pen and writing down at the bottom, because I did not leave myself space with this illustration at the top, of all the dates.